Welcome again to the second part of the second Mind My Past podcast, where I am talking with Mr. Gary Lane, the president of the South African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy, about mining ecosystems and collaboration. So, welcome Gary again.
Thank you, Julie.
And we ended off the last part of the podcast talking about people and elements of systems and how people are the real drivers. And we talked a lot about relationships. So in that sense, as they relate to collaboration. So in that sense, we're really talking about the wiring of the system. And, you know, a lot of people talk about networking as part of collaboration, but I prefer the term network weaving, especially in systems thinking, because networking, when you think about it, is very transactional. It's a static event, but network weaving is an active verb, and it implies, as you said before, that collaboration is an ongoing effort in the mining ecosystem. It's not something you can sort of start and stop. It's about building relationships. But now to loop this back into systems thinking for mining. If you change one element of the system, or if you change those connections, those relationships, the knock-on effects rattle through the whole system, right? Right in that.
No,
yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
I mean, that whole system, it might be a slow response or a fast response, but...
Or a small one or a large one.
Exactly.
The proverbial butterfly who flaps its wings in somewhere and causes a hurricane somewhere else, right? So one of the big topics, obviously, in technology and mining is AI. And in systems thinking, we say that disruption happens when there is an external influence or an external change brought about. So tell me your thinking around this. If AI, does AI impact on the elements of the system? Does AI impact on the connections, on the wiring, on both? What are your thoughts?
Look, AI can have a profound impact. I mean, it's going to impact every part of the system. And I've probably spoken to about 1,000 of our students in mining in the last 7 months, and probably the first question I get asked is, isn't AI going to take my job? You know, and I think that some jobs are going to be taken by AI, but in fact there are going to be brand new skills, brand new jobs that are going to emerge because of AI.
Right.
So, you know, if you think about the people that are really using AI effectively, it's the systems thinkers.
Yep.
Because either AI is a super duper Google that can answer your questions, or you integrate AI into how you actually do work and how you effectively add prompts and utilize it in a systemized way of work.
Right.
So in my organization, the people that are most successful using AI are actually the more experienced people that are more systems thinkers that have integrated it effectively into their work routine.
And I think the critical thinking aspect of it, and the ability to foresee unintended consequences. Just to give you, I mean, AI is such a controversial subject, and just even driving here this morning, I heard how there are these AI-generated adverts for impossible weight loss, and people are buying into it. So in terms of, be it human skills or understanding technology, what do we need to change in the mining ecosystem to make sure that AI is used appropriately and doesn't result in negative unintended consequences or job losses or catastrophes that we might not even be able to imagine? How do we need to think about AI when we're plugging it into the system?
Yeah, so I think, you know, AI is changing so fast. I don't think that we actually have a definitive answer right now.
Okay.
I do think, though, we've got to be using AI and finding out what we know and don't know and how it's going to integrate. So there's going to be an element of experimentation, and we're going to have to set up some policies around it, because you do see people blindly using AI generate the output, and you can see the mistakes in it. It's been produced with an AI versus a person that uses AI as a super duper assistant, basically, to help you do your job. From my perspective, I feel like I'm almost 4 times more efficient.
Right.
Because I can pass stuff to the AI now that I used to do that is really just admin work. I can now use my brain for the thinking work and use the AI to supplement the sort of administrative type tasks and putting it together. So I think we don't actually know, but we're going to have to experiment, be open-minded, and if you think about a system, a process of activities that have people, some of those activity steps are going to be replaced by AI. That could be an agent that performs the task. So there's going to be profound impact.
Yeah.
Which we probably haven't even grasped. We haven't even comprehended yet.
Absolutely. It's interesting, you're actually talking about collaborating with AI.
Yes.
And that brings me to another concept. There was a conversation a couple of months ago around it where people asked, are robots going to take my job? Like in a vehicle production factory, there are robots that actually build the cars. And there's this concept of collaborative robots or cobots. Do you see that aspect of technology coming into, let's say specifically, underground mining?
100%. I think it's the integration of AI, robotics, and humans that we can work in a proper collaborative way.
Right.
That we're harnessing the best of. I mean, imagine the safety implications in mining, and the productivity implications in mining of AI and robotics integrated with humans to leverage the best of all worlds. It will take the mining industry's value proposition and ability to generate value to another level with much better zero harm,
less environmental impact. Yeah. So if you think about mining ecosystem, and here I'm actually sort of putting a circular economy hat on, would you say that in order to design the optimal ecosystem for mining, we need to start with the end in mind, or do we need to start at the beginning? So for example, if we want to achieve good socioeconomic outcomes, do we need to basically build a map of what will create those good socioeconomic outcomes? And then we want good financial outcomes. Do we need to build that systems map? We want good environmental outcomes. Do we need good technology? And then all those maps need to overlay and become one massive system.
100%. There's a rule that I apply. It's got to be top down.
Right.
You've got to start at the high level view first. You've got to agree where's the start of your system, where's the end of the system, where are the steps in between.
Right.
Map your high level system first, and then start mapping all the subsystem feeders into that.
Right.
Because it's very complex, but actually very simple. It's a paradox, but that's the reality. Because if you get alignment and understanding on the system and you build it, it is simple. So you've taken a complex problem and you've actually simplified it and you've created clarity.
Yeah, into understandable components.
It doesn't matter if you start at the end start at the end. It's about agreeing the start, agreeing the end, mapping it, and understanding what the objective of the system is and where the system constraint is.
Right.
That's fundamentally
it. And I think it's important to note as well, because this comes back to the human side. This is both a quantitative and a qualitative exercise. So we can use fuzzy cognitive mapping to do the quantitative stuff. So for anybody who doesn't know fuzzy cognitive mapping, it's basically matrix algebra, and you can calculate the relationships and the causalities between the elements. So we could do it that way. Talk a little bit more, if you would, about the qualitative aspects that need to be plugged into this mining ecosystem thinking pattern, because I think that relates to your sort of favorite topic of collaboration and people and skills.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I mean, if you look at a typical mining system at the highest level, okay, let's just take a mining company. You could map all the activities it takes to mine and output ore.
Yeah.
All right. Then you'd have to map, well, what are all the subsystems that are required to sustain that? Because if you think about it, finance, HR, engineering are all subsystems that sustain that value stream. They're not independent departments or functions. They're integrated into that system's ability to perform. Now you could step it back even one further and say, okay, so to meet the skills and capability requirements of all those activities and future activities, which are maybe robotic, AI-driven activities, we're going to need different skills.
Right.
Somebody entering first year varsity is only probably going to be a professional, capable engineer in about 10 years.
Right.
So those people entering first year now are hitting the workplace as industry-ready, capable engineers in 10 years' time. So we already need to know we don't know what 10 years' time looks like.
No.
That's just one subsystem, and that consists of attracting the right people into tertiary education.
Right.
There's probably some master's degrees that need to be on the right thing. The research needs to be aligned to what the future needs. Then we've got to have candidate engineers that have the right competency development to become a professional engineer, then continue professional development. So that is just one system inside a system. Now, every one of them you can simplify, but they all have to work in unison for the industry to thrive and generate value for all stakeholders, including the community.
And the environment as a stakeholder. I mean, let's face it, fundamentally we are using a non-renewable environmental resource.
Yes.
And so we've got to be very judicious. And I know that the demand is going to explode because of it's such a contradiction in that the demand for minerals and metals, certain of them, is exploding in order to try and solve environmental problems.
Yes.
And yet mining itself has environmental and social problems. So it's a real contradiction. How do you deal with contradictions in systems thinking?
So, if you've mapped the system and you understand the system objective, then those trade-offs are inherent in how you're going to manage that system.
Okay.
So if you're going to destroy the environment, that system's not sustainable.
Right.
If you don't invest money in exploration, it's not sustainable. If you don't get the pipeline of capability development to meet the requirements of skills, it's also not going to be sustainable, and it will slowly die.
Right.
So those paradoxes are dealt with in the trade-offs that are done inherently in the system. And if you expose those trade-offs, and you might not get the trade-off right, but the feedback loop is so important.
Yes.
So if we have too many graduates entering university and we haven't got a supply-demand balance, the feedback loop is going to be a signal to say, well, let's start pushing engineers into a more general degree, not just purely mining engineering.
Right. So somewhat similar to, I think, in America, where first and second year students, not just engineers, do general degrees and then decide what their specialization is in year 3 and 4. That's right. Okay, that's an interesting...
WITS's first years and second year, most of second years, actually the same degree for engineers.
Yes.
I actually have an opinion that we should be pushing a general engineering undergrad degree.
Right.
And give people more of a systems perspective and then start specializing. But that's a long-term
outlook, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, wouldn't it be awesome, I'm putting a systems thinking hat for universities now, if every degree related to mining had a human component, communication, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, had a technological component, these are the technologies that are up and coming, had a financial component to understand the implications of our jobs. So start that systems approach, as you said, right from undergrad. So you might have a lecture on psychology as a first year engineering student.
That's right.
That's very
and Vince
interesting.
has already done some of this in some of the first year, second year. It is very interesting when we tried to design the new engineering degree at Limpopo. We started off with saying, what do we believe the future engineer requires?
Right.
Core engineering skills.
Yes.
But then there's a lot of other stuff. They need all the ESG and legislative requirements. They need systems thinking. And then they need all of the people, leadership, collaboration skills.
Right.
And they need financial acumen. So it's technical skill was only one of the 5 capabilities we require of a future engineer.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we may have created the impression here in this conversation that everybody has to be an expert at everything. And I want to squash that thought, because in the conversation about collaboration, we tend to talk about collaboration with external parties and SIMM and MMP and the Minerals Council all collaborating. But let's bring it back down to the reality on a mine site. The reality is everybody on a mine site has to collaborate with each other. HR and the engineer and the mine worker and the community member, the medical officer and everybody. So as we sort of wind up this conversation, how do you believe people, I don't want to use the word should, what is the most useful way of looking at collaboration for developing a functional, sustainable and responsible mining ecosystem?
Looking at it very simplistically, it all starts with what is the objective and strategic outcome, and understanding that if you think about it, HR, finance, engineering, all these different functions in a mining organization should all be working to the common purpose.
Right.
If you understand your value stream, you understand where your constraint is, and you understand who's your customer. If we had to get everyone to realize they have a customer. Now, a customer is not an external customer. The mine planner, you could say to the mine planner, who's your customer?
Yeah.
The customer is the miner.
Yep.
So they've got to make sure they meet their customers' requirements. So that mindset around we must meet our customers' requirements, and the customer is ultimately the consumer of what they do to generate value for the benefit of the organization for all stakeholders, which are shareholders, community, government, employees. All of those are
the environment
and the environment,
yeah.
all stakeholders,
right.
that are all going to benefit from the effective value creation out of a value stream.
That's fascinating. Two things come to mind. A little bit of a personal story. I once worked on an open pit mine, and the mine planner evidently did not talk to the, I guess not the architect, but the construction manager, because they built my office directly in the direction of the pit development.
That's great.
So that's the antithesis of systems thinking.
Yeah.
But you talked about constraint, and I want to pose as we wrap up, because this is about the future now. One of the major constraints in mining is that we have a non-renewable resource. So if we take that as a constraint and think of feedback loops and that as a signal, do you see the possibility that the mining ecosystem might shift towards a more circular approach to minerals and metals recovery?
So I think external signals outside of the system will actually determine what happens. So if you get the system right and you've got the right signals that force the changes in legislation and in investment, it's going to naturally happen. Things shift naturally. So if we need to drive more circular economy because of, and it'll happen, cost of mining goes up. Exploration has gone down because the investment required. It will naturally drive towards a more circular recycling economy.
Right.
So the system actually self-regulates itself naturally. That's why if we as South Africa don't get all the components of our system right, we are not going to benefit from the critical minerals demand as a country. Fundamentally. Some mining houses are going to do phenomenally well, but as a country we won't benefit.
Right, so then, just as a wrap-up, I think I've said that 3 times now, what do we do about this? How is IMM approaching this in terms, because I know it's a passion of yours, is to how do we all work together to get this working properly? So if you can share with some of what you're doing.
We can only influence where we can play a role, and the place that SIMM can play a role is we the home of the professional. So we could steward the capability development pipeline from undergrad academia through candidate and engineer to continue professional development and bring together industry. What do you need for the future engineer in 10, 20 years time? What does the undergrad courses look like in the universities? The candidate engineering requirements. I mean, what's crazy is we've got engineers that have graduated 5-6 years ago who are not even aware that they need to register as candidate engineers to become a professional engineer. And I'm talking a lot of them. So we in the industry have failed as leaders because we aren't even effectively letting our and mentoring and guiding our young graduates.
Right.
So we can play a steward role in bringing all the right parties together, EXA, MQA, all the research with Mandela Mining Precincts, CSR, and get that ecosystem working. It's no one single person, party, or organization can get it right. It's every one of them working properly, some with commercial interests, some without commercial interests, to work to the benefit of the industry, fundamentally.
And ultimately, as you said, it's got to have a purpose, and the purpose is a better life and future for South Africa and South Africans.
A prosperous mining industry which benefits everyone. Ultimately, reduces poverty, gives people jobs, communities benefit.
And doesn't destroy the environment in the process.
Destroy the environment. Exactly.
Thanks very much, Gary. There's been a fascinating conversation.
I'm looking forward to a further conversation.
Yes,
There's lots we can
it will
talk
be
about.
great. Looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. I certainly did. I learned a lot. And I'd like you to think about a few things. First of all, are you eligible to register with the South African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy? Why not find out? I'm a scientist and I'm registered. Then how does systems thinking impact your work? Have you thought of it that way? And most importantly, I think for the continuation of these podcasts, let us know via our social media, via our website, what's the sort of topics you're interested in hearing about, especially in terms of experienced people in the mining sector. Would you like us to be talking to some youngsters in the sector, get a different view from, what Gary and I said about how they're experiencing the development path? Let us know. We look forward to hearing from you, and we look forward to more podcasts. Thank you.